Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to our session. This is Optimizing Salesforce CRM Consultant 4-Day. My name is Dave Wimmel. I'm a senior consultant with our consulting group as part of our success team. With me today, we have Gina Marquez and Chris Ciccani. They're going to be joining and giving their stories a little bit later today. So by now, I'm sure you've seen this thousands of times. So this is our safe harbor statement. This was located on our website. If you have any questions, feel free to check that out. It's also on our investor website. So I'd like to go over a little bit on the agenda today. So I'd like to start and talk a little bit about optimizing CRM. We'll talk a little bit about what's the business process review. Then I want to go into how do you prepare for that review. So what are some tips and tricks around getting started with that? Then I'll talk a little bit about how you can do that yourselves or how you can use Salesforce services and best practices for running those BPRs. And then I'm going to turn it over to, I think, the most important part is to let our customers here actually tell their story about how they worked to create this and also work with Salesforce. And then we'll follow it up with some key takeaways and give you a chance to ask some questions, get some answers. And what we'll do is we'll bribe you. We've got a big bag of chocolate here, some gold chocolate. So ask us your questions and get some chocolate and walk away with your chocolate. So again, I'm Dave Wimmel. I've been with Salesforce for 4.5 years, senior consultant as part of our enterprise consulting group, which is part of our success team, our customer success team. So let's talk a little bit about how do I optimize CRM. How many in here are just getting started with Salesforce in your implementation? Make sense? Great. How about how many have been using Salesforce for a while but are ready to bring on another division or are ready to maybe revisit what you've already implemented? Okay, that's great. So this is kind of perfect opportunity. When you get started, it doesn't matter where you're at in the life cycle. You have some questions about how you start. You know, who's going to be able to help me? How can I ensure success? So the real answer to this is start with a BPR. So what is the BPR? You probably heard this term a lot. It seems pretty similar, but let's just review that, right? A business process review is a structured approach to identifying your critical processes and understanding how to improve those efficiencies in your business workflow. What it really represents is your opportunity to be successful with Salesforce. So it's really important that you get started off on the right foot, whether you're starting off again or if you're revisiting and trying to optimize your CRM experience. You see time and time again, I have in my different implementations, they fail when you don't spend enough time up front defining your processes and clearly understanding where it is that you want to get to. So take that extra time up front to define your processes. That's going to be a common message and theme I think you're going to hear again today. And then prioritize that. So another thing I see customers do is that they have lots of ideas that they want to get implemented, and they try to do them all at once. And unfortunately, we know our user group, through change management or adoption, it takes a while to get used to new functionality and bring that on. So really prioritize and focus on those critical processes first that you want to try to implement. And then evaluate your strengths. So determine if you have the resources on your team, if you're going to need additional help or assistance, and decide what that game plan is up front. So now let's talk a little bit about preparing for your business process review. So the first step that we always recommend is identify your key stakeholders and your executive sponsor. So this can be anybody who is going to be the management team that's using it, be it whoever is a project champion. And the reason that this is very important is that we also see a lot of implementations quickly go down and start to fail when they don't have the right support from the folks in the room, from the management team, from their executive sponsor. If they don't have that push, there's not as much incentive for your users to also use Salesforce. Next step that we recommend is to map out that as-is process. So sometimes this seems a little, why am I doing this, right? Why do we need to understand this? We want to move forward. Well, if you don't understand what your current process is or where there are certain pain points, it makes it very difficult to move forward in terms of how you want to improve. So from our purposes, when we're working with customers, we actually have what we call a BPR questionnaire that we'll hand out early on in the project or before we've actually started. And this is a kind of a focused chance for you to say, let's ask some questions about how am I using my accounts today? How am I trying to sell? How am I trying to provide customer service to folks, and how do I want to improve that? By taking this step up front, you can ask the right type of questions about specific subjects, and that will help focus where you want to target your business process review session. So you can start to break those out and ask those questions actually within the review itself. Another thing we recommend is really define the metrics and goals up front. So too often we know that we want Salesforce, we know we need to change, but we don't know what that means. So start by saying, what do I want to get at when we're complete with this implementation? Am I trying to reduce handle time for customer service groups? Am I trying to increase our pipeline or increase visibility to the various activities of my sales staff? So that's one thing, by mapping that out, that will also help you drive your requirements and understand your process better. So another one we call is learn the lingo. So take Salesforce and be able to translate it into your own business language. Too often when you go into that business process review, there's a lot of time we spend up front trying to explain, well, I call it a prospect and Salesforce calls it a lead. What does that mean? If you understand some of the lingo from Salesforce up front, you can now translate it to your business and say, this is what we mean and this is how we want Salesforce to represent that lingo. Bring the right people to the table. So this is another one. Once you've kind of identified you're ready to start your business process review and start to map out requirements, bring the right people to the table, be it the key champions of your sales team or support team, or if you're custom app, whoever's going to be helping drive that. And also bring some management sponsorship to the group too, right? Show that it's important as you're going through that session that you have support from the management team, and they're going to be able to help you drive the direction of that process. Then also take free training. So many of you are, I'm sure, aware of it, but we recommend before you get started, it doesn't matter who you bring to the table for this review, go out to our Salesforce site and take the free Salesforce Fundamentals course. There's sales reporting. There are several different tracks that are free. And it's a great way to again, get familiar with Salesforce. So now when you come in to start working on your process, you've got that background of how Salesforce is maybe going to help you improve your processes. So next question that you want to ask is, who's going to help me when I do this? Many cases, Salesforce is easy, right? We try to make it easy. And many of you are very experienced in doing these processes and can often help run these business process reviews on your own. But if you have certain questions or you think you may need to extend that help, our Salesforce consulting group is here at your service to help you improve upon that. So we have, again, whether you're a small business and you only need a little bit of our time, or if it's a full 3-month, 4-month, year-long project implementation, we're available to help that. So what do we bring to it? So this is key with Salesforce. Because there's not a lot of time spent up front having to set up servers or understand how that structure is going to work, you can get right in and actually focus on the customer processes. So that's our mantra from the Salesforce group, is that we want to focus, how are you going to use your process and how can we do that in Salesforce? We bring a wealth of experience to the table. So we've worked with thousands of customers, thousands of implementations. And because of that, we've really built a best practice knowledge base that we can apply time and time again and understand, apply creative solutions to your problems. We've seen it before. You might be experiencing it. We know how other customers have dealt with it. We can help you work on that too. Another thing that we'll provide is a proven methodology to ensure your success. So be it an iterative approach, or we also have an actual agile Scrum methodology that we can apply as well. We've used that over time and time again, and that helps make our customers successful. And it all starts with that business process review. Now I'd like to turn it over to Gina Marquez from Patient Safe Solutions, who's going to tell you a little bit about their implementation.
Okay, well, thank you, Dave. Good morning, everybody. I'm Gina Marquez from Patient Safe Solutions. Just a little bit about Patient Safe Solutions and who we are. We are a patient and nurse-centered company. We focus on preventing harm and assisting in eliminating common errors. A few areas that we work within are medication errors. We also work in wrong site surgeries as well as wrong patient surgeries. Our mission is really simple. We exist to prevent harm and save lives through patient-centered solutions. And our core values are demonstrated by an acronym we call BEAST, Everything that we do is bold, excellent, agile, simple, and trusted. So much like the beast you see on the screen there, too. Just a little bit background before we jump into this slide. We are a small shop. I currently have 12 users, but we have all the same problems as pretty much as everybody else does. So prior to our implementation and our optimization, we had no defined sales processes to benchmark our opportunities as they progressed through the sales cycle. So really, we had no idea as to what was going on. Our investors didn't have a reliable source of information about the health and the welfare of the company. Being a VC-backed firm, this is huge when you're going out and you're hunting for money. So the next thing was that our marketing had no way of tracking our campaigns and our ROIs of trade shows, so we were kind of spending money blindly. The next thing was that we had inconsistent reporting and metrics were used. So calling up all my sales reps, I get 5 different versions of what the weekly report really should look like. So you can imagine, I was kind of pulling my hair out at the end of the day. My day kind of looked like this. I don't know if you guys have ever had this, but basically it was chaos, chaos, chaos. I had information everywhere. I had it in Salesforce. I had it on spreadsheets. I had it on files. I had it in people's heads. So there really was just a lot of information that was everywhere that we needed some help tying it all together. The reason why we chose Salesforce and chose to work with professional services was we really like the user-friendly interface. As you know, it's fully customizable to fit your business needs. And the best part about it is that there's free training. I can't emphasize this enough. I know Dave talked about it, but the free training that is available is huge. It's great for people who have end users that are out in the field that you can't bring in just because of cost. The reason why we decided to work with professional services is that we needed an expert pair of eyes to help us fully grasp the full value of the system. So being very new to my position as Salesforce administrator, I needed somebody else to kind of take a step back and say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about doing this? So that expert pair of eyes was really very, very helpful for us. And the last thing is that we also needed somebody to personalize our training that suited our needs. So we definitely took the training that was available to us, but we also customized it based on our needs for the business as well. And so this is just a really brief snapshot as to what our project time looked like. We actually had a very short engagement, just so you know, it was 4 days. And so the first thing that we did was before kicking this off, we wanted to make sure that we did a lot of gathering all of our requirements and kind of doing all the kind of the legwork. So we sat down, we met with an internal team, and we gathered all of our requirements for our project. So right at the very start of our project, what we did was we sent it ahead of time so that literally at the start of the day, our consultant actually was able to literally hit the ground running. So day 1 looked like this. She started with our phase 1 of our configuration, and we did a review of the current workflow. Day 2 was a review of day 1, and we also imported a database into our system as well, too. Day 3, what we did was we implemented the marketing piece, and we also completed our import. Day 4, what we did was we did training. And being that all of my users, they're not based all within the office, what we did was we utilized WebEx and GoToMeeting to really build out this training for them. I talked a little bit about the work that we did up front, so I'll expand on that here. I was talking about an internal committee that we formed that made all the decisions. We spent 4 working sessions with these people. One thing that we did that really helped, which we found out after session 1, was that you need to define what your objectives are. We spent a lot of time just kind of going over stuff that just really didn't make sense after a while, and so we said, okay, what do we need to do for this particular meeting? So make sure you write that out. The next thing that we did was we asked our team what type of fields and information was, made sense to them. Not only were we, obviously taking the standard fields of what we needed for our business, we also asked them what other types of things do you want? What does it make sense to you? So involving them really helped to drive the adoption. The next thing that we did was we created a statement of work that was signed off by all members of our committee. How we did this was that we took the BPR and we modified it to fit our needs. So when we engaged Salesforce Consulting, what we did was we established a common language from each side. So this was huge in terms of making sure that everybody knew exactly what we were talking about. We also established a daily time for reviews, and we talked about our next series of projects for the implementation. We also set up an instant messenger service to quickly communicate information. And we reviewed our statement, and professional services made suggestions of things, how they could be improved. So this helped us in terms of, with a short engagement, being able to really streamline everything. So after our implementation was done, this is the good stuff that happened for my company. We had finally had accurate forecasting for our operations team and human resources. Being the nature of our business is that we it's not a type of carry and go type of item. It does take a lot of planning that's involved. So knowing what's coming our way was huge in terms of either allocating the resources or hiring and training them. Our full alignment of our sales team, they finally knew exactly what was expected of them. The VP of sales had accurate insight to the sales process, so no longer was he having to call up and say, hey, what's going on with this deal? What's going on with this? He could just look at it any time. And the best part about it, in my opinion, was that we saved the company $110,000. What we did was we did a lot of backlog of historical data, and we associated them with current opportunities in the system. So what this did was it actually drove everything, our leads down from $1,800 to $300 per lead. So I don't know what that means for you guys, but for us, what it meant was that we were able to add to our head count. We can either save the money, or we could add it back into our campaigns for advertising. So this was a very big win for us. So the key takeaways, the meat and the potatoes of what you guys came for today. Define your sales process ahead of time. This is huge. You want to make sure that you know exactly what your sales process is and what the critical path is from start to finish. Obviously, there's going to be variations of that, but you want to make sure you have a really good idea as to what it is that you're looking, what is your sales process. So write it down. I recommend using Visio, PowerPoint, or even just writing it down on paper. You also want to write out a statement of work. I talked a little bit about this earlier, but what this actually will help you do is actually work as sort of a checklist and make sure that your internal people in your committees or your boss or whomever is reviewing it has some sort of checklist and you can report back. Third thing, clear your schedule. With my implementation, we had a very short engagement, so I made sure that I didn't take on any more than I needed. So you want to make sure you're not, trying to juggle 2 or 3 different things with that. You want to utilize the help and training that's built into Salesforce as well, too. This is by far probably one of the best things if you have a quick question. I don't know if you've all seen the little eye that's on the page. That's my best friend. Whenever I have a question about something, I just click on that and it'll tell me exactly what it is. You also want to clearly define your objectives for your working sessions. So when you go ahead and you're doing your review internally, make sure you know what you're wanting to cover with each of those sessions. The next thing is you also want to gain group buy-in on your processes. This is going to help drive your adoption so much further than you ever imagined. And just by adding these people into your sessions and giving them a stake in the ground or stake in the game to be able to say what's important to them really will help you in the very end. And the last thing is that you don't want to stop there. Create a suggestion box on your homepage and constantly iterate and take them into consideration. Well, that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Chris Ciccani from Baxter, and he'll tell you all about his experience.
Thank you, Gina. That was excellent. Some very similar takeaways you're going to find as I go through my presentation as well, but definitely different styles or different approaches to each of the projects. Just a bit about Baxter before I start. We are a subsidiary of Baxter International, and we manufacture products that save and sustain people's lives. We primarily play in the bioscience or the biopharmaceutical space, the medication delivery space, and the renal dialysis, so in the treatment of chronic kidney disease. We are a well-branded, well-recognized global brand, and we've got 75 years of market leadership, and we've got 26 manufacturing facilities around the world. 2 of them are actually in Canada, in Ontario and in Quebec. So what's my role? I'm a sales effectiveness manager at Baxter. I operate within the sales function. And this role was designed and introduced in 2005 to work closely with the Vice President of Sales in helping him operationalize sales strategy and ensure that there was a liaison between his sales teams and the global business units, as I described. So primarily marketing and the sales teams within those areas as well. There's other responsibilities, as you can see, but I'm also tasked with managing the CRM platform, or Salesforce.com, all in the interest, of course, in driving sales. So just a bit of context here, a little bit of history around our situation. Some of you out there may find yourself in the same boat, same type of situation, but we did have a previously installed on-premise application. It started with an S. I won't say the rest of it, and there was some limited success with the tool, cumbersome, and I think it took up around 12 servers, or 1/3 of the space in the IT room in terms of processing power. So the team was very happy when they got to clean out all those servers when we implemented Salesforce.com. The main reason why the problems that we were having is that the tool was inflexible and it was very, very costly. So especially in the changing healthcare market that we were dealing with, we needed to adapt it and apply the business processes that matched our account team management model. In 2005, we did transition to account team-based selling, and we formalized an account plan process with 80 account plans in spreadsheets, using spreadsheets. So we couldn't change our on-premise application to manage these different account plans. So hence there was the business case. We needed to automate, and we put that forward. 2008 investment was made, and Salesforce.com was our platform of choice. So fast forward to 2008, the summer. This is where the business process review and the business requirements gathering started. We did engage with Salesforce.com professional services, and primarily, and this touches on a little bit of what David said up front, there were some very key advantages to using Salesforce.com. The individuals, the groups that are very, very familiar with the product, of course, they own it. They're very good at what they do. But they were able to focus on what our customer process was versus the infrastructure. That was one of the big advantages. They wanted to come in and say, okay, let's talk about your business process, because we're going to need to understand that if we're going to help you be successful throughout the length of your project. We could see that they were introducing best practices, some of which we were already practicing, like account planning was a best practice. So they got very quickly up to speed on our account planning process, and also offered other best practices throughout the engagement that we could leverage. And the last thing David said, the proven methodology. During their pitch to us to engage with us as the implementation partner, they definitely could prove their success in prior implementations through previous customer experiences. And that really kind of drove it home for us in selecting professional services to engage with us throughout the project. So here's what our plan looked like. I know Gina mentioned a four-day kind of rollout, but I know there was lots of work that was done prior to that 4 days. But a smaller group. We had a bit more complex implementation. 150, it was only 150 users, but we have a matrix organization where we have an account manager that is flanked by specialists across each of those product groups that I described earlier. So very intricate. So we needed a very solid methodology and plan in order to be successful. And this is basically how it was broken out: plan, analyze, design, build, validate, and deploy. And we stayed true to that methodology throughout the 4 or 5 months of the implementation. And we were able to obviously deploy and implement in October 2008. So what value did professional services drive right off the bat? Well, in the planning stage, no doubt about it, they, as I mentioned earlier, they wanted to key in and focus on what our objectives were, what the scope of our project entailed, so that they could help us manage that scope, given the timelines that we had set. And they helped tremendously in the business process review, mapping out the current or the as-is processes, understanding our business requirements so that they could help us configure and customize the application to meet our needs. So that was the right off the bat the value that they were driving. There were other things that they contributed to, team structure and roles, and helping us manage the project and the budget timeline. But those two, I think, were the key ones that we, I guess, enjoyed early on in the approach. In terms of tools and templates, early on, there's lots out there. I'm sure you've been exposed to many of them during this week at Dreamforce. The ones that I personally leveraged the most and used, Salesforce does have an implementation map. I wanted to understand that right up front, get myself familiarized with it, so that we could map our project based on their best practices. The business process review worksheet helps take you through everything about your business that you should be documenting and looking at and considering in terms of your design. And also the Salesforce.com Solution Design Workbook, which helped us track every object that we were going to implement, every field, the pick list values, for example, the business rules that were to be embedded. So it was all documented and formalized in a very systematic and well thought out approach. And of course, there's other tools and templates. This is not an exhaustive list, but there's lots more that you can be used. So you should really be selective and choose which tools and techniques you want to use throughout your planning and your implementation. These came really in handy. So getting to the meat of really the business process review in the analyze stage, right off the bat, we had to schedule multiple facilitated business requirements gathering sessions where we were going through the business process review discussions. Our Salesforce.com professional services partners were there to understand what is the current state of business, helped us document those business needs based on the business processes, and really got a really good understanding of the end user requirements. This, to us, throughout our project, is key. So if you don't have your requirements documented properly, if they're not accurate, thorough, and if they don't come from the business, then you're not setting yourself up for success. You really need to take and spend the time here in understanding what does the business want, or else you're setting your implementation up for either some very significant challenges down the road, if not failure. So success at this stage really helps us inform subsequent stages as you move forward. So if you don't get this right, you could be up for some challenges. So take your time, get this right. It could impact the application configuration going forward and any of the customization, and you want to avoid yourself having to do a lot of rework if you do this stage right. So as we moved through the plan and we had our business process reviews, there were multiple facilitated sessions with our stakeholders, our business stakeholders, coming into each of the sessions. We moved into the design and the build stages where, once again, our Salesforce.com partners were able to sit down with our end users and say, okay, well, here's how we understand the user requirements, and here's how we've translated them into the application blueprint. So engage your stakeholders during these types of sessions so that they can see the application come to life, helps with adoption, helps with buy-in, And you know, if you have a chance, and this is what we did, we had real-time customization and changes on the fly that were performed right in front of our end users, which really wowed them, considering that if we wanted to make a change to a field in the old system, it could take up to 2 to 3 months. This was instantaneous. They could see page layouts being developed, field labels being changed, workflows being implemented, pick list values, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, that holds a lot of power in front of your end users. They can see the power and the flexibility of the tool as it's being built in front of their eyes. So exposing them to that early was key. So as we move into training and deployment, 2 stages, validate and deploy. The third kind of sessions that we had facilitated were what we called field of force. They were a little play on Star Wars there, so we engaged our end users back into the system, or back into the rooms, and we took them through, okay, we heard your business requirements, we configured the application to meet your business needs, now let's see it in action, and you tell us this one last chance if it's configured properly, and it was. And they were very appreciative of that opportunity to come in and see the application before it actually went into a live environment. They examined the look and feel, and we were able to, you know, provide a bit more validation and verification of those business needs just prior to moving into training. And of course, the deployment and training did involve. We had our professional services functional lead on the project, Michael Petruccelli with Salesforce.com. One of the strategies to engage Michael was he was so familiar with our business requirements throughout the planning that I had to have him engaged in the training as well. Because when you've got somebody standing up there in front of a Salesforce, for example, talking about business processes, and they're not a Baxter employee, there's a bit of a disconnect there. But Michael had lots of credibility because he understood the terminology, he understood the Baxter processes, and he could speak to them pretty freely. And when we went throughout the training, I didn't really even have to jump in and answer some of the business questions. That individual was able to answer those questions most of the time, if not all the time. So that's a little bit of a strategy that we used throughout the lifetime of the project. So what were our results? We did implement 150 end users. We're up to 185 at this point across sales, marketing, customer service. 6 core business processes we really anchor the CRM application on. Of course, account planning was key to us. All those Excel spreadsheets had now been uploaded into the system, and the reps love it because when you're dealing with an account team who has to share those buckets of information, they were ecstatic to see that those account plans were brought online. They could update them simultaneously. Huge productivity savings when it came to that. There were others, of course, opportunity management, contact management, and others. Really, I think the aha moment was we had a better holistic visibility to customer information once everything was up and loaded. The account team collaboration improved considerably. I'm really excited to hear that we're going to be probably leveraging the chatter feature next year to have our account teams collaborate a little bit more closely via that feature. So I'm excited to see that announced this week. Just the better enabled sales disciplines because the system's easier to use than the previous system. So the adoption rates have just taken off as a result. The other piece that I've got here in terms of the implementation results and benefits is part of the business case, we engaged, we put forward a request for a full-time employee to come on before the project started, during, and to stay on after the project to really support and drive home the disciplines of the application with the end user base and end user community. And that comes in the form of a business application specialist. I have this individual, he's on my team. We work closely together, and he takes calls day in and day out about, okay, how can I leverage the application and tool to do the things I needed to do. I would say the first 6 months he took a lot of calls regarding training and how to do things. Now reps are calling him how to configure reports and dashboards to better see their information. So we're seeing a shift in the behaviors and the change in the application as a result. So something to consider in your deployment or in your implementation. Is having an individual to stay on. He is an admin, but he's on the business side. He does work closely also with IT if there's more complex coding requirements involved. So I think that was a strategic move there on our part. So keys to success. Internal alignment. I mentioned we were in a matrix organization. Some of you may have a similar setup, a similar model, but internal alignment, project planning and preparation is key. I think you've seen that as a theme throughout everyone up here talking about their experiences. Visible executive sponsorship. Our vice president of sales is actually in the system to this day after 1 year of implementation almost every day. And he's looking at his dashboards and he's looking at his information and he's using that to generate discussions with his sales leadership team to understand how we can grow the business, how we can improve sales effectiveness. Of course, Salesforce Professional Services, I talked about that already. Continuous communication and project transparency. I talked about engaging your stakeholders and your business users at every stage of the project. Don't shut them out because that's going to get their buy-in. That's going to keep them engaged, and you'll see, even when you deploy in training, that they pick it up really quick and they're engaged very early. And the last piece here is the ability to manage change. So a big change from an on-premise, kind of clunky application and a bunch of spreadsheets to this, this online web-based cloud computing tool. So there's a lot of change you have to be aware of, but we managed it, and it was key to our success. Some key takeaways, just the same theme. It's all about change management. You need to probably do a lot of hand-holding in some cases. Bring people along with you throughout your implementation. And the last two pieces here is, this was a big takeaway for us. Don't be afraid to change your business processes, okay? Sometimes that's a bit of a risk, but if you wanted to align it with a best practice, take the plunge. Don't be afraid to change your business processes. You'll reap the benefits if you take on that challenge, trust me. And also, don't be afraid to customize the application. Maybe you already have a best practice. Maybe you've already implemented a world-class best practice in any of your business processes, but the application natively doesn't really fit what you're doing. So change the application to match that. That's the flexibility in the platform. Engaging with professional services will guide you and help you through all that. And that was basically our experience. So I'll turn it over to David.
So thanks, Chris. Thanks, Gina. So just wrapping up, right? This is your chance to optimize your CRM. You're at this point where you want to move forward. I think you've heard great stories from them. Really planning and defining that process up front, that's going to be critical to your success. Take that time to do that, right? Prepare for your business process review. So set up meetings. I think I love what I heard on both of your topics is set objectives for each session. Have your folks write out that process, be it on paper, be it on the board, step through each step. Bring the right people into the room. Have regular defined sessions, break it up. All of those are kind of key components. Then the third bullet point here, right? So obviously, Salesforce, we want to help you out if we can, but many of you are going to be able to do this on your own. We want you to take some of the tips that we talked about today, right? Have that questionnaire. Take the time to write out the process itself. Bring the right people in. Define those objectives. But if you find yourself where you need additional help or you need additional support, there's some challenging pieces. Salesforce, we want to make you successful, right? That's part of what we do here, and we embrace that very much. So our services group, our consulting group, as part of our success team, are happy to jump in here and help you on complex or simple implementations, however you need us and need to use us there. And the other thing I'll bring up here is also use your Salesforce community. So beyond our services, jump out to Successforce, right? Look at our online websites and chat rooms and LinkedIn blogs, right? All of those for certified professionals. Take advantage and leverage what all of you are going through. Use those best practices as you go in and do your own approach to your implementation. And again, as I say that, right, because those are some great examples and best practices, put that in front of your management team and say, hey, many times, right, we're targeting a date and you're pushing this date that we want to get implemented by. But we need to spend this much time up front, and here's why. We want to be successful. Here's some things that other companies are doing. Here's some things that Salesforce Services has done. We need to do this up front for our business to be successful. So with that, we'd like to welcome you to the cloud. Don't forget before you leave today, if you can complete an online survey out in the registration hall. This is really important to us. I don't know if you heard this in other sessions, but Dreamforce is really about you. So we want to take the opportunity, if there's more content, more information you want to see, if there's questions about how we can improve things or ideas about how we can improve things, please take that time and fill out those surveys. And as a nice prize along to it, you can win the Nano Pod here. But really, it's a chance for us to improve so that we can help you and make our Dreamforce next year even better. With that, I'd like to open it up for questions and answers. I welcome Gina and Chris back up here. If you have some specific questions about your implementations, some best practices or ideas you might want to do, both of them had some great examples of things that they did. So if you do, go ahead and step up to the microphone here and feel free to ask away.
Hi there. You mentioned the business process review questionnaire, and you may have mentioned it and I may have missed it, but is it something that is available through the help and training, or is there just a format, or is it a formal form?
That's a great question. I think we'll look to the Salesforce. There are some sample ones out there. It's a good question if we have it actually out on our site itself. If not, we should probably put that out there, but we'll definitely look to the Salesforce. There are some samples out there of different BPRs, questionnaires.
Hi, Reuven Shelef, Out of the Box Consulting. We're a partner of Salesforce, and I think, Dave, you forgot to, by the way, thank you very much for a great presentation, all of you. I mean, it's great to hear a methodology to do it right. I think, Dave, you forgot the consulting partners and also an option.
And that's part of our community. Our
right.
partner of folks as well are here to help as well.
Right. And a question for Chris, actually. So we usually come in a couple years, sometimes more, after a deployment of Salesforce that might have been successful initially, but then things change, especially in the high-tech environment based here in the Bay Area. And then what was good for them then isn't, because processes changed, the scale changed. And then we come in and kind of re-engineer the process, re-engineer the system according to the updated processes, etc. A question to you, Chris, in that initial phase of, I believe it was week 1 to 6, where it was defining the requirements or analysis.
Yep.
How much was accomplished from your sense of what had to be accomplished from a business requirements collection and alignment? How much was actually accomplished in those first 6 weeks, and how much was updated still within the implementation process, but thereafter?
So good question. I would say 80-20. So we the first several weeks, we had many engagements, multiple 1-hour or 90-minute sessions with our renal partners, our medication delivery partners, and our bioscience partners, our customer operations partners. So, as we were defining the business process and documenting those business requirements, mapping it out, and our professional services team was really getting educated on the Baxter business. We knew we weren't going to be able to finalize everything, and that there would be some additional changes later on. So I would say somewhere around, we had 80% of it pretty much locked down, and that we could say this is not going to change. They've vehemently said this is great, we don't change this, but we're still not sure about some of these other processes, because we may want to change how we do business or how we use the application. Can you give us a little more time to see it, look at it, feel it, and I would say maybe 10 to 20% we made some changes. A lot on fields, labels, some business rules, calculations, some behind-the-scenes stuff. So I think that would be an accurate split. Okay.
Hi. I actually have two questions, one to Dave and then one for Chris. For Dave, you had mentioned that the BPR questionnaire could be in Salesforce. Is that true with the other templates that you described that were described in Chris's presentation?
So things like the workbook or solution.
Yeah.
So some of those are part of our methodology. So it comes with the services kind of implementation. I don't know that those are directly available. But I'll tell you what, if I give you my card afterwards, I'll follow up on those. There might be samples out there too of other folks that are doing similar. Basically, it's just a nice approach of we just do object by object with the different fields in there, and you can put your custom fields in there. It's a way to kind of manage what your configuration is going to look like.
I can just make one comment. So I downloaded the success map from the site, found that on the site. The solution design workbook was actually provided by the integration partner, by Salesforce.com themselves. So I received certain tools, throughout the implementation. I'm sure I could have found the solution design workbook on the internet, but it was provided by our partner.
Okay, thanks. And actually, my second question, so just a small bit of background. I work at UCSF, UC San Francisco School of Medicine. So we have a couple of instances, but they're rather disparate. And we're trying to plan for further development for various applications from administrative to research to clinical, even to the admissions process. But my question to you is actually based on one of your slides you had as a takeaway, be aware of full data migration effort. And I just wanted to know a little more about that.
Yeah, so I personally have implemented other systems before, and I've gone through that experience. So I had that a little bit upfront knowledge that the data migration effort can be tricky if you are planning to obviously extract out of your existing database, and then maybe do a scrub and some cleanup on that information, and then use that as a base for the new application going forward. So we had the rules defined. We had everything well defined. Our efforts came in tying back the records to the right people, to the right accounts, to the right contacts. So that was where our migration effort, our biggest challenge was. And we were engaged with Salesforce.com to do the migration effort. The individual we had was excellent. He knew databases, of course, like the back of his hand, and really helped us along. Part of that problem is that we hit those challenges up front where we weren't pointing him in the right direction where data should reside and should be linked, and that was our red flag. But we fixed it in the end, and it all worked out.
Actually, I think that's a great point to bring as part of your business process review earlier is identify those data points. Are you going to keep or maintain existing data? Are you going to start from scratch? Because after multiple implementations, data is usually one of the largest challenges. So getting ahead of that, setting those expectations or objectives up front in that process review. One would be to identify what's the source of our data. Do I need to get the right resources ahead of time who are going to be able to help us extract the data or maybe cleanse the data? Plan for that ahead of time or even within that review session to give you guys as much time as possible to be successful as you migrate and put it into Salesforce.
That's a good question.
Any other questions? I forgot I had chocolate and I didn't give it out, so anybody else hungry? All right, well, we'll be up here. If you want to come and ask questions individually, that's fine as well. But thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your Dreamforce.